Hi Year 12, we're still working our way through Act 3, Scene 4 of Hamlet. So we've just had Hamlet going into a bit of a rant to Gertrude about how his father was so much better than Claudius and he can't believe she's lowered herself to marry Claudius after experiencing marriage with such a paragon of virtue as Hamlet Senior. And in the meantime, Hamlet has also killed Polonius, who he thought was Claudius. So Hamlet is just in the process of calling Claudius a clown instead of a king when the ghost enters. So that stops Hamlet mid insult, and instead he addresses the ghost and asks what the ghost is doing there. Of course, Gertrude can't see the ghost, so the fact that Hamlet has started talking to someone with extreme respect as opposed to how he was speaking to her, she immediately concludes that he's mad. So then Hamlet says to the ghost, I know why you're here. You're here to chide me. You're here to tell me off because a lot of time has gone past and my passion has increased, but I'm using it in the wrong way. I'm using it to punish my mother instead of acting out your dread command, instead of committing the murder of Claudius, which you requested that I do. So the ghost replies to that and alludes directly back to the vow that Hamlet made to the ghost of remembering the ghost. And so then the ghost uses an analogy of a knife blade. So when you wet a knife blade, you sharpen it so that it's to the point. So the ghost is saying you're angry and your anger is like a blunt knife. You're directing it against your mother instead of directing it against Claudius. So he's saying that he wants to whet Hamlet's purpose. And then he says, but look, your mum's really freaking out because you're talking to someone who's not here. So, her imagination, because conceit here means imagination, is running wild. So you better talk to her and calm her down. Notice that he refers to Gertrude as weak. He says that she has a weak body. So that might be tying in with Hamlet's negative view of women, or it might just generally be a statement against Gertrude for remarrying so quickly. So then we have a fairly bizarre exchange where Hamlet asks Gertrude how she is, which is an odd thing to say in the middle of an epic argument and when you've just started talking to someone who's not there. So naturally, Gertrude replies with some concern about why he is talking to nobody. And she also describes his appearance as looking really wild and out of control. And so then Hamlet doesn't really reply to this. He focuses back on the ghost and says, look how scary he is. And he says his form, so the way that he appears, and his cause, the reason why he's here, together means that even if the ghost was preaching to a stone, they would still be able to kill Claudius for him. So it's a little bit self-derogatory there that Hamlet still hasn't followed through on the ghost's urgings. But then he says to the ghost, do not look upon me, lest with this piteous action you convert my stern effects. So at the moment, Hamlet is really angry and he's ready to kill Claudius. But he's saying, I feel sorry for you. When I look at you, I get upset. So don't look at me in case you make me upset instead of angry. Because if he's upset, then he'll cry instead of getting blood. So it just shows that in order to get revenge, Hamlet has to be angry. He can't do it cold-bloodedly, which perhaps is a comment either on Hamlet's personality or on the nature of revenge. So Gertrude is still just like, who are you talking to? And Hamlet's like, don't you see him? And Gertrude is like, no one's there. No one, I can't hear anything. And Hamlet just ends off by saying, look, he looks exactly like my father. And then the ghost leaves. And so Gertrude reacts to that by saying, you're clearly mad. And then Hamlet has quite a revealing speech where he says, my pulse as yours doth temperately keep time. It is not madness that I have uttered. So he's confessing to his mother that his madness is just an act. that he isn't really mad. So that's important. If you're going to talk about Hamlet's personality, you need to establish from the beginning that he's never really mad, and that's proof that he isn't. So Hamlet then goes on to say, if you think that I'm mad, then you'll dismiss my words. You'll think that I'm just saying this because I'm mad, and that will make you feel better about yourself. You don't have to take anything that I say seriously. And he says, don't do that, because if you do that, then that won't fix the problem, because at the moment you have an ulcerous place in your soul. So you've got this wound in your soul from the fact that you've moved on with Claudius. And he says, if you overlook what I'm saying, then rank corruption will infect your entire soul. So it's that imagery of disease in order to explore the plight of Gertrude as Hamlet sees it. And then again he says, do not spread the compost on the weeds to make them ranker. So he's saying don't put a layer of compost over what I'm saying in order to make yourself feel better, because the compost will make the weeds grow faster. So again, we've got that imagery of the garden, of the corrupt garden, that has been used all along to describe the situation with Claudius. So that's really the most important thing that is coming out of that speech. Then Gertrude says, oh, you've broken my heart. And Hamlet says, good, get rid of the bad part of it. And then he gives her advice, stop sleeping with Claudius. And he tells her to assume a virtue even if she doesn't have it. So that relates back to the idea of appearance versus reality. You should pretend to be virtuous because eventually custom will make it come true. So he says, if you refrain tonight, then it will be easier to abstain the next night and then the next night. And then he says, use almost can change the stamp of nature. So when he says nature, he means human nature. So if you are born as someone who is quite lustful, and then you don't give in to that, eventually it's almost as good as if you were just born virtuous. So that's what he's saying. To Gertrude, he's saying you should ignore Claudius and stop sleeping with him, and then it will help to make up for the mistake that you've made, and then your ulcerous, corrupt heart will be able to be healed. Okay, so then he comes back to Polonius. So don't forget, he's killed Polonius and then immediately ignored it in order to have a go at his mum. And the whole time that they've been having this conversation, Polonius's body has been lying on the stage. So I just want you to think about the visual that Shakespeare's created there of Hamlet and Gertrude arguing over the body of Polonius, but ignoring it completely. And then the ghost coming on stage as well and leaving again while Polonius's body is still there. So I just want you to have a think about why Shakespeare might have had the body on stage for the entire scene. So Hamlet says that he repents of killing Polonius, but he blames heaven for it. He doesn't see it as being his fault. And he says that he's the scourge because everyone who is at fault with the death of his father is getting punished through him. And then he says that he has to be cruel in order to be kind, and bad begins, but worse remains behind. So he's saying, he's recognising how heavy the task of revenge is, that it means being really cruel in order to be kind. And he sees that at the moment they're at a position that's quite bad. He's just killed Polonius and had a go at his mother, but it's only going to get worse. Worse remains behind. So the situation is going to continue to get worse. So that's a comment on the nature of revenge. So then Gertrude is sort of like, okay, well, there's a dead body. What do you want me to do about it? But Hamlet replies a bit off topic, and he basically says no matter what Claudius does, whether he tempts you to bed, whether he pinches your cheek and calls you his mouse and kisses you, no matter what he does, don't tell him that I am not mad. I'm trying to reach an end. I'm mad by design. So he's saying, don't tell Claudius that I'm really sane. And then he goes on and says that he uses a simile that Gertrude is like an ape, like a monkey. If she's stupid enough to tell Claudius, it's like opening a basket that leads to your own death. So he's warning her that if she tells Claudius that he's not really mad, Claudius will kill her. And Gertrude probably doesn't understand that, but she says, sure, I definitely will keep it a secret. And Hamlet says, I'm going to England. And Gertrude is like, oh yeah, I forgot, that's right. And then Hamlet moves on to talking about Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, and he says, my two schoolfellows, who I trust as I would adders fanged. So that similarly shows that he doesn't trust Rosencrantz and Guildenstern at all. Their friendship is completely over. He trusts them the same amount as he would a poisonous serpent. So it's a pretty negative simile to describe them by. And then he says that he's going to hoist them by their own petard. So that's an awesome phrase, and I want to explain to you what it means, but we don't have time right now. So please remind me when we get into class, and I'll tell you what it means. But basically, the point is that their own treachery is going to lead to their deaths. So he thinks that they're building mines to blow up him, but he's going to go beneath them and blow them up instead. So it's pretty clear here that it's Hamlet's intention to kill Rosencrantz and Guildenstern because he sees them as helping Claudius plot to kill him. Then he says that killing Polonius means that he's going to be sent packing right away, that his departure to England will happen very quickly. And so he says he's going to lug the guts, so he's going to carry Polonius into another room. And then he looks at Polonius and he reflects that now that Polonius is dead, he's still and secret and grave. So that's obviously a play on the use of the word grave to mean where you bury someone, and also grave to mean serious. And says, but in life he was a foolish, prating knave. So it's a contrast between what Polonius was like in life and what he's like in death, and perhaps a comment on the power of death to equalise people, as well as a condemnation of Polonius's character in life. So one last thing, notice that when they leave, Hamlet physically drags the body of Polonius off the stage. So think about, again, the visual that's being created. What exactly is Shakespeare suggesting about Hamlet's character by having him drag the body of Polonius off the stage? Just something to think about.